Hello and welcome to another episode of Starside Chat. I'm one of your hosts, Zach, and joining me as always is Aaron Capo.
Hello.
And it's officially fall now. We were talking about that, and I think both of us a little bit are maybe fighting a cold, maybe?
I went to an orchard yesterday, so I was outside for majority of the day, and I also went into a corn maze. And I just think I got a bunch of like dust and plant particles all up in my sinuses and nose. So I apologize if I sound a little rough and I maybe disappear briefly to blow my nose from this podcast. But yeah, it's a time to be outside, I guess, as fall weather is upon us.
Well, it is now. The day before we started recording this episode, it was like super hot outside. So it was like a last bit of, summer heat before it was like officially fall.
Yeah, but now it's fall.
Now it's fall. So hopefully the weather cooperates and we can start wearing sweatshirts and stuff like that. But
yes.
In the meantime, let's talk about some new stuff that's popping up. Just like the fall season, we got some interesting PlayStation 30th anniversary themed consoles and controllers coming out. They're limited edition console
looked
design.
Beautiful. I have to say, I currently don't own a PlayStation 5, but man, oh man, is now the time to get one. These look gorgeous.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit hoping they'll release some of those plates that you can just like buy and attach to your base model PS5. Yeah. They sometimes do that, but the ones they advertised on their PlayStation blog did not show plates for the old console. They have like I think the Slim console and the Pro. Is that out already? I actually don't know, but
I don't know actually.
But they also showed like the Pro controller and the regular DualSense and the Portal. They've got versions of all of that with the sort of gray. Old sort of PS1 style look to them as far as like the color scheme goes. So it's like that soft gray color, and then they have like the old PlayStation logo with the sort of red, yellow, green, and blue color in them. And so that sort of is how they color in the different buttons on the controller as well. So they look really nice. I would definitely say check these out. It makes me want to get the controller. The DualSense. So
yeah, I think they did a really good job. I mean, I have been on record as saying I don't love the design of the current PlayStation 5. I think I much prefer the aesthetics of the Xbox, just like the cool cube of it all. But this color change really makes it look just like it just pluses it up so much. They didn't really do anything physically to it as far as like changing the design. It still has those kind of wings at the top. But there's something so attractive about this hardware.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just because this was sort of the look of consoles when we were growing up, but like just nostalgia. Having that color scheme to it somehow makes it less like, oh, they've gone for some weird futuristic alien design, and now it's like, oh, this is like a cool retro style thing. Literally just that color palette swap was enough to sort of get them there, and maybe they should have started with that instead.
Yeah,
but
that's a good point. It's beautiful. That's all I can say.
It looks nice. I definitely think I might actually pick up the DualSense. We'll see. I don't need another controller, but it looks so nice that I might get it. But now, Nintendo has held off, it seems like, but they are now officially filing a lawsuit against Palworld developer Pocket Pair because they're saying Palworld infringes on multiple patent rights.
Yeah, so I read a little bit about this. As far as I'm aware, most of the time, game companies will patent like gameplay techniques. So, for instance, you'll see a patent in Pokemon's case of like a drawing of like a person throwing a ball, capturing a monster, and then utilizing that monster in a secondary type of battle. But in general, those patents are not super well enforced. They're kind of just, they patent them just because. And I guess they patent them because of situations like this where the infringement is kind of so blatant. It was kind of like a one-to-one, like, here's Pokemon, well, here's our Pokemon type of thing. And so this, I don't know if this is unprecedented, but it's definitely the first time in a long time that there has been a case where it's specifically gameplay mechanics that are being infringed upon that they're actually taking action on, which is kind of crazy. I mean, GTA, frankly, probably patented a lot of types of mechanics that a lot of other companies took advantage of. I mean, I think we've talked before about so many different, there's been so many GTA clones. Watch Dogs is an example, obviously, but tons of others. But, you know, Rockstar never went after those people to be like, well, actually, we invented stealing a car and driving it around an open world type of thing. So, I don't know. It's a really weird situation. I don't know where the tables will fall.
Yeah, Nintendo's always very protective of their IP, and obviously it's not just Nintendo involved in this. Obviously, like the Pokemon Company is involved in this. I don't know if any of it is just like, hey, you made creatures that look too similar to ours. It sounds more like this is like, maybe that's involved. I haven't read up on like the different things that they're alleging.
Multiple. They said there's multiple things.
Yeah. But obviously, like you said, the whole throw a ball, capture the little pocket monster, that is probably a big part of it. I wonder if they just like issue an update that like you makes it so that you capture the creature in a different way, and
maybe that would
they're
fix
like,
it.
oh well, I guess we're good now. But it does allege multiple patent infringements, so I don't know. It would probably take more than that, but they're very protective of their IP. So I think everybody expected a lawsuit. I'm not sure why it took so long. Maybe they needed to really, I guess, go over everything and make sure that they had a strong case before they filed the lawsuit, but I guess we'll find out how that goes in time. But I want to talk about a new game that's coming up that I thought was a DLC for Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, but it is a new game that's coming in February of next year called Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii.
What a mouthful.
Yeah, it's not the best name I've ever heard for a game, but you play as Majima from the Yakuza series. He's been in both of the Ichiban Kasuga Like a Dragon games, so people will recognize him. But you play, I guess it's like you're sort of, you end up washed up in the wreckage of like a boat on shore of some remote island. And so it seems like it's using a lot of like the assets from Infinite Wealth, because it's that one's set in Hawaii, and they have just like quickly turned around this new game based on like using a lot of those assets. So I guess it's smart, especially since Infinite Wealth did so well for them. But yeah, this one's more pirate themed. You sort of, it seems like also it's returning more to that like somewhat brawler style instead of the turn-based stuff. But
the
you
battle
have
system is very interesting.
You have two different battle styles. So they advertised his Mad Dog style, which is all about speed, but he can also use a Sea Dog style to wield a cutlass and other sort of piratey type of equipment. But I loved Infinite Wealth so much, and I can get into like a pirate themed thing. So I am probably going to play this when it comes out. They have already unveiled like their sort of different editions of the game, so you can already pre-order this. But there's like a full sort of, I guess maybe it's a collector's edition that comes with like a crazy, I don't even know how you describe this. It's like a little, it almost looks like what would have been like a Happy Meal toy in the 90s, but it's like a little barrel where I guess a cartoonish looking version of Majima will pop up out of the top of it. It's weird, but it also comes with like an eye patch. But yeah, so the different versions are already out there. You can check out and see which one you want to get. But I'm into this. I will probably play this. It looks pretty cool.
This battle system is so interesting. I'm watching kind of a loop of the two battle styles you talked about. And that first one, the Mad Dog style, it seems like I don't know if this was the case for previous Yakuza games, but it seems like there's a lot of air juggling going on, like a kind of a Devil May Cry type thing where like you're uppercutting people, they fly up into the air and kind of hang there for a second, and then you can kind of jump and join them and punch them in the air. And he also seems to have the ability to like make shadow clones of himself. So there's like a bunch of like shadow versions of him running around the battlefield, which is very interesting. I have to say I really like the Yakuza games, but I don't know that the battle system in them is for me, the turn-based system. I think I would prefer this brawling style. It looks much more fun minute to minute to me. Even the like what did you say the pirate one was called? The pirate dog?
Oh, like the Sea Dog one?
Sea Dog, yeah. That also looks super cool to me. And this also is like it almost gives me like Dynasty Warrior type vibes because you're fighting like giant groups of people as opposed to previous Yakuza games where you're just fighting like sometimes you fight a lot of people, I guess. But this is like there's a scene that I'm looking at where he's on a boat and there's like 50 people around him and he's kind of just like firing a gun into them, which gives me kind of like Dynasty Warrior vibes. But this looks really cool.
Yeah, the only Yakuza game I've played other than the first Like a Dragon game and Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth that has that brawler style was Ishin. And that one it was an interesting, unique style where you had multiple different stances that you could use, and one of them had like a sword and the other had a pistol, and then there was one that had both a sword and a pistol, and they were just like but you also had like a no weapons, fists only type of a stance as well that you could switch between, and you could level each of them up and put points into them that would unlock different aspects of the combat for those styles. It was an interesting style, but I don't think I liked it as much as the turn-based. So I'm a little bit the opposite of you, where I think normally with any other series of games, I would prefer an action combat style. But for this series specifically, somehow I find I enjoy the turn-based stuff more than their brawler style combat. But maybe this one will be different enough that I will get into it, because the trailers that they show of the different styles of combat does look really fun and interesting to me. So I'm curious. I think I will play this when it comes out, though.
Zach, it was Geeked Week. Are you familiar with that term?
I have heard the name, but I'm not up on it.
It's some sort of Netflix thing where they're like, hey, here's what's going on. And there was a lot of news, a lot of Netflix trailers. I did not care for most of them. However, one thing that did stand out to me, especially because I'm playing through Phantom Liberty right now, is they revealed there's going to be another Cyberpunk 2077's anime coming to Netflix, which the first one, Edgerunners, was heavily lauded. People really liked Cyberpunk Edgerunners. It was made by Studio Trigger. And I think it maybe won a Game Award the year it came out for like best anime or best game adaptation. But I think people are excited for this. Did you check out Edgerunners when it came out?
No, I still have not watched that, but I have not been subbed to Netflix for a few years now, so
I think it did capture like the vibe of the game really well. It was a great little series, and they even after the series they put a bunch of stuff from the series into the game in a patch, which was very cool. But yeah, I think this is a cool thing. I will check it out when it comes out. It just said coming soon, so who knows at what point it's in development or not. But they also said there's going to be new seasons of the Castlevania show, which I know people like. And there's also going to be a Devil May Cry anime that's coming to Netflix, which I know people who like Devil May Cry really like Devil May Cry. So look forward to that. But Zach, I want to end the news segment with 3 things. There was a leak of Switch 2 hardware. Supposedly, the efficacy of it has maybe come into question. But also, I saw 2 other articles this week that popped up. And so technically all of these are next-gen rumors / leaks about the next-gen Xbox lineup and as well as the next-gen PlayStation lineup. So I'm calling this, there's a mini segment in our news segment that I'm calling Next Gen Rumor Roundup. And I'd like to start with the Switch 2 leaks, which you said you didn't really take a look at. Is that correct?
Yeah, I saw these, and so I sent them to you, and then I was like, well, I'm done with this, and I didn't actually really look into them for some reason. I think I'm interested. I want the Switch 2 very badly, but I also am a little bit like, I'm gonna wait for Nintendo to unveil it.
Yeah.
But
2 big takeaways from this are there was one of the rumors floating around was that it was going to be a dual screen device. It seems like maybe that's not the case. It seems like maybe there's going to be 2 sizes instead, and so that's why there are 2 screens. So there was also a rumor that there were going to be 2 SKUs of it, SKUs, like 2 price points rather. And so now I'm thinking that probably there's going to be a larger screen one and a smaller screen one, but there aren't a number of takeaways from this. I mean, obviously, the biggest thing is it looks like the previous Switch, so it's not going to be some sort of crazy folding design as I had speculated, but it looks cool. There are some specs as far as the internals. They're saying that it's going to be, I think they said, I saw some person saying it was going to be as powerful as a PS4 undocked, but when you dock it, it's able to take advantage of that extra power, and it will be as powerful as a PS4 Pro. So all of this is kind of take it with a grain of salt, because it also came out that the person who posted these CAD designs was sort of just a 3D printing enthusiast that maybe got a hold of like dimensions for a case. Sometimes you'll see, especially with like iPhones, we were talking about this before we recorded, someone will get like case manufacturers will get the dimensions for a new iPhone, and then you can kind of extrapolate what the iPhone will look like based on the cases that have to snap into it perfectly. So like there are parts of the Switch that wouldn't be covered by a case. So who can say what would be there if you only have the case dimensions? There's like a kind of a weird trigger design on the back of these that I think is something that wouldn't have been covered by a case. So he's kind of just, taking creative liberties with it. I guess we'll have to see. But it's kind of like a third trigger. Like you have the top bumper, you have the regular trigger, and there's kind of like a third trigger behind that, but I don't know if that's actually going to be real or not. Also, I mean, the main thing we heard about this months ago was that it was going to have magnetic rails as opposed to slide on. So the current Switch, you click the Joy-Cons on by sliding them down. And we heard that instead of clicking that, it would just kind of like snap on with some magnets. And that does seem to be the case based on these leaks, but all good stuff, I would say. I'm glad they're not doing something super crazy and going in a crazy different direction. This also, I think, lends a lot of credence to things being backwards compatible with the Switch.
Yeah.
It seems to also, you can use the same carts. So, yeah, I think all good things. And I wonder if this will at all affect their timeline for unveiling it. Speculation was they were going to unveil it mid-next month, mid-October, but maybe, I mean, it's so close they might not even... This might not affect them at all. It might just, they'll do the same thing, and maybe they thought it was just a small leak. Or maybe the efficacy of these really is in question, and it's completely wrong. But what's your big top take on this, Zach? What do you think?
Maybe a little bit more iterative.
Yes.
Than we're used to seeing from Nintendo, but I think that's a good thing, because I think most of us were like, no, the Switch is great. Just
Perfect.
iterate on this. Just improve the internals, fix the Joy-Con stick drift, give us like a Joy-Con 2.0 that is a little bit better than the previous ones, and make it so that everything is backwards compatible, and the new console is more powerful, and we'll be good. You don't have to like reinvent the wheel with this. And again, you have to take all of this with a grain of salt, but it seems like maybe that's what Nintendo is doing, so I'm okay with that. So
this is stuff I wanted to see. I'm glad to see that they are iterating, and I am excited for the reveal coming up. I hope it has a cool song that goes with it,
because you're gonna watch that trailer over and over again until it actually comes out.
I am. So the second thing I wanted to talk about, there is a rumor that the next-gen lineup of Xboxes is going to include a handheld console. So there's possibly going to be, there's the, obviously there's the S and the X right now, and speculation, or I guess rumors are that in the next version, the so-called 10th generation of this console, or of the console generations, projected to be, this is saying 2028, but I've heard 2027, is supposedly going to be a Switch-like type thing, where you could have a handheld thing. And it has concept art in this article where like it has like kind of Joy-Cons that come off of the tablet, but I don't know. I mean, it's very hot right now. Like the Steam Deck really like jump-started people making handheld computers. There's like that ROG Ally or whatever. And
there's a bunch of them at this point. Yeah.
And so it makes total sense that Xbox is like, oh yeah, we need to make an official. I mean, because the Portal also is a thing for Sony. So I feel like it's like a foregone conclusion that the next Xbox generation will definitely have a Switch-like. And I don't think I don't think necessarily this is going to be able to plug into a TV like the Switch does. But
I assume if they made one, it would. But I mean, we don't know at this point. But,
who knows?
But yeah, I mean, it would make sense to me that Microsoft, losing this console generation is like, all right, we need to do something. Because we've talked in the past about what a weird position they're in, where, for a long time, they were losing to Sony because they didn't have exclusive games.
Yeah.
And then they got all these studios that could make them exclusive games, but then they started losing the console war so badly that now they can't afford to release those games exclusively on their hardware because they don't have the install base to make it profitable. So now they're stuck where they have to release them multi-platform in order to make the money back that they're spending to produce those games. And so while everybody in the media is like, oh, this is a good thing because it means people don't have to worry about what console they're playing them on. They can just, have them. And I'm like, okay, sure, that's good. But also it's bad for business for Microsoft. It's bad for the Xbox brand because people are just not going to buy an Xbox console if they can buy a PlayStation and have access to Sony's exclusives, but also everything that Xbox makes. So, it seems like if they're gonna get back into the sort of console market and sort of have some sort of footprint there, they're gonna have to do something unique and interesting. And I don't know that a portable version of an Xbox will do that, especially given that the Switch and the Steam Deck exist. But it's probably a better route forward for an Xbox console than just trying to make another box to compete with Sony's PlayStation. So we don't know what Sony's doing for the next generation either. So it's possible that both of them are prepping to release some sort of really powerful Steam Deck-like, Switch competitor for the next generation. But we don't know.
I mean, think about this though. Is it persuasive to you to think about a handheld device that has access to Game Pass? So you get the device, and maybe even when you buy it, you get 6 months free of Game Pass. So you basically, a lot of times when you have a new console, you're like, well, there's only so many games for it. Like when we bought our Switch, I think I talked about this last week. I bought 1-2 Switch for some reason, just because there were 5 games available for the Switch, and I was like, well, I have to get more than just Breath of the Wild, even though it's one of the best games ever made. So now, if they release a next gen, a 10th gen Xbox, here's our new Xbox. Also, here's this new Xbox handheld, and you can get Game Pass on it. So you just automatically have this built-in library of games, and all of our first-party games come to Game Pass. So you now have this Game Pass device that is portable. I think that's sellable. I think it's not a terrible thing to have in your lineup.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the case that Xbox is making for the next console generation. And we saw the S was way more successful than the X this generation for Microsoft, because it was less expensive than the PlayStation 5 and the Series X, and it was more readily available, and people were buying them to be just a Game Pass box.
Yeah.
During
Game Pass
the pandemic.
is very sellable.
So yeah, I mean, Game Pass does help its case, and you can definitely make a strong case for, well, don't you want a portable that you just have Game Pass on, and it can be a portable Game Pass box, and that is a fairly compelling product. The question is, will it be enough to, I don't know, get them back in the race, as opposed to again, buying a whatever the next PlayStation is that has access to their exclusives and Microsoft's games. No subscription service as well. There is a subscription service, but there's not Game Pass. So that's the question.
Let's talk about the PlayStation 6, because the third rumor we have is about the PlayStation 6. And the rumor is that the PS6 has 2 SoCs, or systems on a chip, in development in parallel. So what could this mean? Speculation is, it could mean a couple of different things. It could mean, similar to Xbox, that they all have a main PlayStation 6, and that's the more powerful SoC, and then kind of the less powerful or smaller one would go into a handheld console type thing. So it's possible they're also developing a handheld version. Obviously, the Portal did very well for them. The other speculation is that the 2 SoCs, one could be a Series X type, and then the other one would be a Series S, where they would be kind of bifurcating their generation for the 10th generation of consoles. So you'd have the powerful one, the Pro one or whatever, and then you'd have the smaller one that is way more affordable. Maybe they saw how the Series S sold super well, and they're like, we could get in on that also. We could make a less powerful PS6. I don't know what they would call that. And I actually don't know which way I'm leaning. I think I maybe am leaning more towards they're also developing a handheld, as opposed to a less powerful, cheaper, PS6S type of thing. But it's interesting. It's the first time they have supposedly developed 2 systems on a chip concurrently, in parallel, for a coming generation.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're aware of the market, and also I feel like it was very public, the struggles that the sort of power differential between the X and S brought to the games industry.
That's true.
This last generation, it was reported widely that the S was sort of an albatross for the current console generation, because it hamstrung so many developers trying to make games that would have all the same features that could run on both the S and the X, and just not having enough power from the S to do what they wanted to do for a release on the X. Famously, was such a problem that Baldur's Gate 3 was going to not launch on the Xbox because of it until Microsoft sort of lifted the requirements that whatever they release on their console be sort of feature complete and sort of equal in terms of all the features for both the X and the S. And Baldur's Gate, they were like, we can't do that with the S. And so
I think specifically
Microsoft
it was
had to
split
lift
screen
that.
they couldn't do on the S.
Yeah, so they had to lift that requirement in order to get like probably the biggest game from last year on the console. So I don't know if it's smart to sort of see that situation that happened this last generation or the current generation, I guess, and to like say, well, we're going to do the same thing for our next generation. Now, I think the only way you can make a case for that is if it is something where you have like a normal home console, but then you also do like an alternate version that's like this sort of a Switch version of your console. But if you're going to do that, why not just go all in on that?
I agree.
Because it seems insane to me to still make a normal home console and also a Switch version of that console. Because who's going to buy the non-Switch version of it?
It's a great question.
I guess maybe somebody who's like all in on like, give me the most powerful thing you have available, and that's what I want.
Yeah, someone was like an 8K TV, and they just like have like a man cave or whatever.
And they're like, I never play portably, so I don't need that. But
yeah,
I mean, I can see someone like Microsoft or even Sony releasing a version of like sort of their version of the Switch that has a dock that maybe you could even like plug in an external disk drive to, so they can still have like backwards compatibility on it. But yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't just pick one or the other and just go all in on that. But I can see Sony, especially since they made the Portal, they're like, they're thinking, we want to be able to make it so that you can play your PlayStation games portably.
They're right on the cusp.
So they're trending that direction. So it seems like it would make sense if their next console was some like beefed up version of like what Nintendo is doing. But
they almost went the case of the Wii U, because like the Wii U was basically a Switch, but it had to be tethered on the same network basically to the base station, and that's what the Portal is. It's like it's not really anything without the base PlayStation, and so they're sort of just like getting to the point where they're like, oh, Nintendo was right. It's just like it's like it adds so much value to be able to take it wherever you can. It's like such a cultural thing also. Just like when you see someone out in the world, you're never seeing someone playing a PlayStation on a bus because that doesn't exist. But you could see someone playing, like if you're commuting, you'll see someone playing a Nintendo and you're like, oh, it's a video. Like obviously they're playing a Switch. Like, I don't know. Maybe the 10th generation of consoles is the fully portable generation where we see Xbox and Sony follow Nintendo and everyone has a portable console. It's kind of crazy to think about, but maybe 10th gen is mobile gen.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it, and I'm not against it. I think it is like a cool, fun idea to do that. I don't know how they pull it off, but just considering like so many games are, unless the next generation isn't about these giant leaps in performance and visuals, which maybe that is where we are, where things look as good as they look, and there's not like a big leap to be had for the next generation. And so obviously the next generation can be like giving you the option between home console and handheld. And that's how they differentiate the console generation. But as far as different power differentials go, there's a little bit of a case to be made that like, well, that exists right now as it is because of the PlayStation Pro and the PlayStation 5. But that's a little bit different than like the Series X and S situation, because they didn't launch the console generation with that. And also the base PS5 is still like where everybody's developing for, and then they just happen to have a little bit more power for resolution and frame rate with the Pro. So I don't know, it's a little bit different, but either way, it's interesting to think about And it definitely makes sense to add this as like a regular segment, it seems like, just because we seem to be getting so many leaks and rumors, and we are coming up on that next console generation. So maybe it will be.
Well, for Nintendo for sure. But I was surprised in that Xbox article, they said that they weren't expecting the Xbox until 2028. I feel like in like the last year, I saw people saying, oh, it's going to be 2027. But maybe it got pushed back. I don't know. I mean, I think that they, like Xbox and PlayStation, I think like to one-up each other, and they like to release things not concurrently, but like right around the same time, where they can like kind of take over the news cycle. So if Xbox is targeting 2028, I wonder if PlayStation's also targeting 2028, which is 4 years away, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that far away, I guess, but it's far enough away that you could still pick up a PS5 and still get a lot of use out of it. But
true, especially one of those cool 30th anniversary editions.
I know. I'm just saying that's something you should look into.
I don't know.
Well, do we want to dive in? We're maybe like halfway through the show. Do you want to dive into what we're playing, watching?
Yes. I want to do a quick shout out. I watched The Penguin last night. I didn't put it in the show notes. Is this on your radar at all?
The Penguin. Is this a Batman thing?
Yes. So there was that Batman movie that came out, I think it was called The Batman, the Matt Reeves one with Robert Pattinson. And I liked that movie, I gotta say. I thought the music was really good. Like the theme they came up with for Batman was good. All around, I enjoyed that iteration of Batman. And this week, the Colin Farrell-led Penguin show has had its first episode. I don't know how many. I'm not sure how many episodes it's going to be, but it takes place, I think, like a week after the movie ended. So everything is still flooded from the movie. And they're kind of like dealing with that. And I thought it was interesting. It's going to be a kind of a bridge to the next Batman, the next Matt Reeves Batman, which the DC universe is all messed up. And it's like, this is not going to be the new Batman in quotes or whatever. There's going to be another Batman that's going to be like the main DC Batman. Very confusing. This is a separate thing entirely. But I also saw that maybe the upcoming Batman movie will be in the winter. So like everything's going to be iced over, which will be interesting. But yeah, I thought this was okay. It was nice to hear the theme, the music again. They like kind of interweave the music from the movie, which I liked. Colin Farrell obviously is a really good actor. He really disappears into this role because of all the makeup he has on. But it seems like it's going to be kind of a pretty by the numbers crime show, which I haven't watched in a while. I'll probably continue to watch it. Maybe we'll have more thoughts on it after I've seen some more episodes, but The Penguin, airing on HBO Max.
Yeah, I haven't really followed what's going on with DC anymore. I don't know. I kind of like that first Batman movie they did, but I don't know. I'm still in a state of being superheroed out.
Yeah.
Where I just can't be bothered anymore. But what I can be bothered with is something I've been playing this week. The Plucky Squire finally came out. I don't know if you got a chance to pick this up.
I have been focusing on the other release this week, UFO 50, but I'm interested to hear all about the Plucky Squire.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of like Toy Story vibes to it, because you're in this like kid's bedroom and you're like a character from a book that he has read and is the kid is a big fan of. You never see the kid, so that's not a part of it. You're just sort of in the bedroom, and basically it starts out with the book, and the villain sort of finds a way to push the Plucky Squire out of the book, and so that sort of somehow imparts on you the ability to jump in and out of like illustrated pages, basically. And So you're going around, and it's sort of switching back and forth between like the 2D world and the 3D world. And sort of the first time that happens, it's very, very unique and crazy to see. But they use that in really creative ways, I thought. And it's one of those games where I've heard it described as like a type of puzzle game where you almost immediately see the solution as soon as you walk into the room. Which is fair to say. I don't think the puzzles have been difficult at all, and the combat has been like well done, but like not particularly interesting. But it has that similar sort of old school top-down Zelda vibe to it. So if you've played one of those games, you kind of know what you're in for as far as the combat goes. But I think where it is interesting and good is that it's like very constantly creative and inventive and sort of changing up the gameplay in interesting ways. And a lot of ways I didn't expect, where like there's a part where you have to go get this bow. And so you're in the 3D world and you go find this card that is like, I assume from some sort of like Magic the Gathering style game, basically. And there's this woman who is like a rogue character and she's got a bow, and you go into the card and do this like turn-based battle with her to get the bow so that you can use it back in the storybook to defeat one of the evil boss minions or whatever. But it does stuff like that. And there was another part I played where you jump into this mug that's like on the desk in the 3D world, and you go into the mug and it's like a 2D world, and you're sort of going around. It's sort of around the mug, basically, sort of in a way similar to what you've done in maybe like Super Mario Odyssey. But you're like flying, you have this jetpack, and it's like a 2D side-scrolling twin stick shooter almost. So it's like constantly switching things up in weird, interesting, fun ways. So I think it gets a lot of points for that. But it's sort of it does a little bit feel like a Nintendo game in some ways, because there's like that old Nintendo adage of change things up and introduce new things that sort of surprise and delight. And I feel like that's very much the case with this game. There is a lot of dialogue to click through at times, which I think is I could have done a little bit less of that, but but yeah, I think it's a very fun game. I'm maybe into chapter 7, I believe, of 10, so I'm over the halfway mark. But yeah, I've enjoyed it. I don't think it's like knocking my socks off, but it is a fun, interesting game that maybe if it hadn't come out right after Astrobot, it would be a little bit more of a nice surprise for this year. But I'm enjoying it. But I'm not blown away in the way that Astrobot was like, oh, this is like game of the year stuff. But, you know.
Yeah.
But I would still recommend it. But anyway, tell me about UFO 50.
UFO 50, for those who don't know, is from the maker of Spelunky and Spelunky 2. Two games everyone loves. It's been in development for a very long time. And this is a very weird game. I've seen 2 reviews of it that I haven't watched all the way through that are over an hour long. And the reason for that is, so the conceit of this game is that there was an old, like, classic game company in like the 8-bit or 16-bit era that had a big catalog of games and then kind of disappeared, and you're now uncovering this catalog of games because it's called UFO 50 because there are 50 games contained in this, and they're chronological, and they have like a little blurbs about them. There's kind of a lore about the game maker, the developer. And in the real world, it's made by a bunch of different people. The guy who made Spelunky got together a big team, and everybody was sort of in charge of making their own game. But it's a very hard game to review because it is like 50 unique games all built in. And some of them are Multiplayer, you can play with each other or against each other. They're all super unique, and they go in chronological order. So like it'll say like, oh, this game came out in like 1985, and like this was the thing about it. And I think it goes all the way up to like 1989 is when the last game was released. I have not purchased this game because I want to get it. I think it will eventually come out for Switch, or possibly it'll be a launch title for the Switch too, which I think would be a great launch title because it is 50 games. But I've been watching people play it, and it's a real delight. All the music is amazing for every game. Each game is so unique. There's one specifically that I watched someone play for a long time called Color Race, which is kind of like Splatoon, but it's top down, and you're a race car. And you're sort of having to race around this grid to, and like there's a time limit, and you have to like color in as much of the grid as you can. I also saw one where you're a little ninja guy. I think it was called Ninpuck or something, Ninten. And you have to like, it's a side scroller that you can never stop scrolling, and you have to kind of run around and get to the end of a level. But there's two YouTubers that I watch, and both of them picked it up. And so I've been slowly watching. I haven't looked at reviews that reveal all 50 games because I kind of want to wait to get it to do that. But I think this is just like the perfect Switch game whenever it does come out to Switch, because a lot of the games have 2-player co-op, which is perfect for a Switch that has like, two Joy-Cons. There's kind of a new iteration of Pong that's very interesting. It's only available on Steam right now, and it's like 10% off if you want to get it on Steam. And if this sounds like something you're interested in, I would say definitely don't wait for it to come to consoles. Like, pick it up now, because you probably don't want to have all the games spoiled for you as other people get into it and play it. But it's kind of crazy. Like, this is a game where you could spend hours on just 1/50th of it. Like, they're basically full like SNES style games in this, and it's just like it's so much content packed into one package. I'm only kind of lightly viewing it. I'm watching someone play through chronologically, but I might stop at some point just because I don't want to spoil it for myself when I eventually do get access to it. But I think this would be an amazing launch title for the Switch 2, and I hope that they have thought that as well. But UFO 50 available right now on Steam.
Is it deck compatible?
I don't know the answer to that, actually. It might be. I think it probably is. I mean, all of the graphics are pretty low. I mean, it's made to look like an SNES game, basically, or like a Sega game. So I would bet it probably is Steam compatible or deck compatible.
It should
probably a great deck.
Should come to Switch so that you can use like those retro controllers.
That's also true.
You can probably use those on PC as well, but like, I don't know, it seems like an obvious choice for the Switch. Yeah, especially since it sounds a little bit like Nintendo Online, but as a complete in-box package. That would be a cool thing to have. So this should come to consoles, hopefully, and that would be a cool one to pick up. Yeah,
I almost bought it on Steam, but I really want to play it with someone else, and I want to get it on a TV, basically. So the only other thing I've been watching, and the reason I didn't get Plucky Squire, is because I am still playing Cyberpunk, but I have taken a little bit of a break because, as I talked about last week, Dr. Katz has taken over my life, and I continue to watch Dr. Katz on YouTube. I'm into season 4 of 6. So I maybe possibly by this time next week I will have completed the series. But Zach, I love Dr. Katz, and I love to watch it. So that's pretty much all I've been doing this week. I've been kind of going back and forth between watching people play UFO 50 and you know what else is happening? I didn't put this in the show notes, but maybe it's just because I like Satisfactory. I'm getting a ton of YouTube recommendations of people checking out Satisfactory for the first time because it did that 1.0 launch. And so I think people are super into Satisfactory right now, which is great to see because I love Satisfactory and it makes me want to dive back into it. But I believe those are all the things that I am playing and watching, mostly just watching.
Yeah, I did play a little bit more of Space Marine 2.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like in a weird spot where I think for like optimal experience, I need the co-op to be set to crossplay, and I need the multiplayer set to crossplay off. So I have to like back out to the main menu to basically do that if I want to swap between modes. But I have found that the multiplayer is pretty fun, more fun than I expected. I honestly didn't expect to play much of that. I was like, I'll try it out, and then I ended up like playing for a couple hours the other day because I was having so much fun with it. So I think that is fun, and then like the co-op is what I really want to play, and I've heard that they are working on more co-op missions. And not to spoil the campaign, but it does sort of leave off in a way that seems like they're going to add DLC to expand on that. So I think there's more coming for this game. And it is very good and a lot of fun. I like a co-op game where you have like a progression system and you're unlocking stuff and sort of getting a bunch of different cosmetics to make your character look cool. And there's like so many different classes. I think there was also a recent tease by the developers, because I forget what game they made before this. It might have been World War Z. I'm not sure if that's right, but it was some game where it was another game where you're fighting like hordes of enemies basically. But
yeah, I guess that makes sense.
But yeah, they were like, look, we added classes to that. So they didn't officially confirm that they're going to add additional classes that you can play as to the co-op and multiplayer, but it seems likely that that is the case. So there's definitely more coming for this game, which is pretty exciting. I also wish they would just like flip the switch and make it so that the campaign missions were also just available to go through in like the co-op mode, because it would just add, to the number of available levels to play through. So I think they need to work out whatever server issues they've been having. It hasn't been terrible for me lately, but I think there's some improvements that could still be made there. And yeah, just throw more content at it, and it'll be really fun to play for a while. It's one of those games that's they always talk about it being Diablo-like, where you play through stuff over and over again to get new gear, to power up, and to take on, additional higher levels of difficulty, which, was also the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer style as well. So I'm into that, and I just will probably come back to it now and then and just keep trying to play through it and power up my characters and get new gear and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm enjoying that. And I don't know if it is truly taking away the audience from Helldivers or not, but it seems to be something for a similar audience. So, but it's also interestingly, it has made me think about, should I go back and try Helldivers again? So weirdly,
have they been continuing to update Helldivers? I haven't heard about it in a while.
Yeah, they've still been updating it, and like any game like this, they've been angering the fan base with like different nerfs and stuff like that, and so that has been an ongoing thing. But they've also added a bunch of stuff to it as well, so it would be interesting and fun to go back to. But I have not played basically since the that month where it launched, so I haven't played in quite a while. But so I'm sure I have a lot of catching up to do, but I would go back and check that out again, because it was very fun. So anyway, do you have any parting wisdom?
Zach, I do. For those of our listeners that have cats, sometimes some cats like new toys you give them, and some could not be bothered. There's been a number of cases where I've purchased a new toy for my cat, and she is just completely not interested, and it kind of lays by the wayside. But I have found that, so I have a cat that really likes toys and a cat that doesn't really like toys. And both of them love tissue paper. So my wisdom now is, if you're wrapping something, or you're getting ready to, give someone a gift in a gift basket or something, reserve some of that tissue paper and just throw it on the ground in front of your cat, and they will, I believe, go crazy for it, because that's been my experience. sometimes the simplest toys are the easiest.
It's like when you get a big package and it's got like a present for a kid in it, and the kid is more interested in the box it came in than the actual toy. Yeah.
A very similar situation. But check it out. Check out tissue paper for your cat.
Do they destroy it? Do they just like tear it up?
Oh, yeah. First, they want to be on top of it, and then they want to roll around in it, and then they want to rip it apart.
The 3 stages of tissue paper. Well, anyway, on that note, go ahead and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter at Starside Cafe. You can subscribe to this podcast on YouTube. We're on YouTube or YouTube Music. You can subscribe to us there as well. And we will catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.